Well, it's time now, though, for a look through this morning's French newspapers. I'm joined once again here in the studio by Elena Casses to tell us what's been making the headlines. Good morning to you, Elena.
Morning again, Catherine.
OK, so French newspapers obviously have been covering the decision by a judge here in Paris to go ahead with the trial of Jacques Chirac, even though they've decided he's too ill to show up in person.
Yes, let's have a look at Le Figaro first. They say that while there are some question marks hanging over the defence's decisions, just a week ago they were saying that he would be in court today. Now they're saying his dementia is so bad he can't remember many of the key events that he would need in order to take any part in the trial, and he might not even be able to follow what's going on if he were there. So Le Figaro says that while that's a little bit fishy, it seems the health data is clear. The former president just isn't well enough to be in that trial, and they're questioning today whether there's any point carrying the trial out at all if he's not well enough to be in the courtroom. The main plaintiffs, which was originally the city of Paris, have dropped the case, and it's just some anti-corruption activists pushing it forward. And the events are so old, they say, that maybe it's just time to lay this all to rest.
And it does seem as though it's on some shaky ground there, actually. Let's move on to the economy. No avoiding it. It is another crunch day here in Europe. Imagine that's making a lot of the French front pages.
Yes, if we stay quickly with the same paper, Le Figaro, its headline is pretty much typical of what's across all the front pages today. They start with defiance is spreading over the rescue plan for Greece, and they've got a really extremely sombre editorial in here which says that we could be on the verge of a crisis that would be worse than what followed the collapse of Lehman Brothers in 2008 if a better bailout plan is not hammered out soon for Greece. They're talking particularly about the risk that German lawmakers might decide that bailout is, that they won't vote through that bailout, and as a result could trigger a massive collapse. They call the Eurozone countries pyromaniac firemen in their editorial, saying that with the one hand they're offering more help for countries like Greece, and on the other hand they're pulling back like Germany and Finland have been and telling Greece to go it on their own. But they say the Greeks have no small share of responsibility here as well, with their failure especially, they say, to clamp down on tax evasion, which remains epidemic there.
Yes, it's a massive phenomenon. OK, and it seems nowhere is immune. So you've pulled out an article from Le Parisien, the newspaper, and they said that even the sound of Saint-Tropez may be about to go bankrupt. Saint-Tropez, of course, that town on the French Riviera known best for glitz and glamour.
Well, it's symbolic with billionaires, isn't it? But interesting front page here on Le Parisien. They say it's one of hundreds of trapped towns across France. They're trapped in a kind of debt spiral because they took out loans with Swiss banks at the height of the boom in 2007, 2008, when the Swiss franc was quite low against the euro, so they had great rates. Now the Swiss franc soared against the euro, so the interest charges they're paying on those debts have gone up by as much as 10 times. So that means that a little town like Saint-Tropez now owes more in debt to Swiss banks than it makes from local tax revenues in a year. And they say there's hundreds of little towns across France who, if they're not bailed out by the central government, could go bankrupt.
OK, really, really quickly, just a quick story from the Figaro on how the internet may be changing our brains.
Yes, this is based on a study carried out in Arizona, which showed that kids who were given a particular curriculum to follow where they used more social media got worse exam results than the ones who didn't. So the researchers there concluded internet perhaps not so good for our brains and maybe rewiring them. But the paper says actually that might not be as bad as it seems to be, because actually it's teaching us to multitask more, take in more information from different sources and process it more quickly. And perhaps our ability to retain it over the long term isn't actually that important, and maybe they should be changing the curriculum to teach young people skills that will be more useful in a modern workplace and examine them in a way that the children understand more, rather than trying to fit the children's brains into the traditional exam system.
And actually, I'm being told we do have time for one last story, which I think is an important one, from Libération on a big health scandal.
This is actually very important. If we have a look at their front page this morning, it's got Mediator, 40 years of lies. Now, Mediator, quickly, is a drug made by the French pharmaceutical company Servier to deal with diabetes, which turned out to be a very powerful amphetamine and has now been linked to quite a large number of deaths. Now, the company is in court and they could be struck off and be banned from selling medicines again in France. And the Libération says they have proof that the company lied about what that drug was meant to do and what was in it, way back from when it was first approved for sale in 1973.
OK, a huge health scandal here in France. Thanks very much indeed, Elena, for that French press review. We'll see you later on for the international papers as well.
Thank you.
Thanks.